Today, we're diving into a really critical issue, the struggle for education that Rohingya refugee children are facing in Malaysia. For thousands of them, it's a story about a basic human right that's just always out of reach. To really get a sense of how big this is, let's just start with a number: 124,123. As of October 2025, that's how many Rohingya refugees are in Malaysia. They're the biggest refugee group in the country, a huge community of families just hoping for a new beginning. And let's be clear, these families didn't just decide to leave home. They were forced to flee. They were escaping war, persecution, and a reality of being stateless for generations. They came to Malaysia hoping to find safety, sure, but also a real chance to just rebuild their lives in peace. But that safety comes with a really painful twist. While families are thankful to be in Malaysia, the research shows there's this profound shared frustration. They desperately want their kids to learn, but they're just systematically blocked from any kind of education. So what's really standing in their way? Well, the whole problem really starts here. They're trapped in a kind of legal limbo. And this isn't just about paperwork, you know? This is the one single barrier that basically stops tens of thousands of kids from having a real shot at a future. So here's the crucial detail. Malaysia hasn't signed the 1951 Refugee Convention. Now, that's the key international agreement that defines what a refugee is and what rights they have. Since Malaysia isn't a signatory, it doesn't legally recognize refugees within its own borders. And the consequences of that are just devastating. Without legal status, Rohingya are officially classified as illegal immigrants. In practice, this means their children are flat out barred from public schools. It means adults can't get a legal job. It basically creates this vicious cycle of poverty and being pushed to the margins, and it's incredibly hard to escape. So this one core issue, the lack of legal status, creates this whole tangled web of other barriers. It's not just a single obstacle. It's like a cascade of problems that all feed into each other, making the path to an education almost impossible to even find. The first big thread in that web is the language gap. I mean, communication is everything when you're in a new country, right? But for so many Rohingya adults, this is a constant, isolating struggle. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the whole family dynamic gets flipped on its head. The kids, they learn Malay much faster from being around other children, so they end up becoming the translators for their own parents. This means the parents can't really help with schoolwork, and women especially talk about feeling embarrassed and cut off, unable to do basic things like read signs or fill out forms on their own. Then, layered on top of that, you have the documentation dead end. Even for kids who are born in Malaysia, getting official papers, something as basic as a birth certificate, is an almost impossible challenge. So they're locked out of the system from the moment they're born. Without official documents, families have to rely on these informal, community-run learning centers. But these places are incredibly fragile. This quote just says it all. A school in Penang, which was a beacon of hope for so many, had to shut down. Why? Rent went up, they couldn't pay the bills, and the volunteers were just burned out. And just like that, the kids have nowhere to go. The third barrier is a cultural one, and it's rooted in gender norms that hit girls and women particularly hard, really limiting their freedom and their access to opportunities. For so many Rohingya girls, school ends when they're about 14 or 15. This is when early marriage often happens, and is often tied to cultural beliefs about keeping girls safe and protecting family honor. But what it means is that a girl's chance at an education and the whole future that could bring is just cut short. And underneath all of these barriers, there's this constant crushing weight of just trying to survive financially. When every single day is a struggle, education stops feeling like a right and starts feeling like a luxury that families just can't afford. Just look at these numbers. Men working in informal jobs, they might make between 600 and 1,500 ringgits a month. Now, compare that to just one major expense, like having a baby, which can cost 4,000 ringgit. The financial pressure is just immense. So paying for school fees, or uniforms, or even just bus fare, it's often completely out of the question. But, even with all these overwhelming challenges, there is hope. And you're not going to find it in official policies. You find it in the solidarity of the community at the grassroots level. This really shows you the two different realities coexisting. On one side, you have the system that excludes them. On the other, you have this incredible grassroots support network. Mosques have become these vital hubs, providing food, aid, and a sense of belonging that's all built on their shared faith. So the question is, how do you bridge that gap? Well, the research doesn't just point out problems. It actually maps out a path forward with real, concrete steps for change. The plan has 4 main parts. First, launch literacy hubs for adults to help tackle that language barrier. Second, give official support and recognition to those community learning centers that are already doing such important work. Third, create low-cost, flexible ways for refugee kids to actually get into mainstream schools. And finally, promote programs that build intercultural awareness to fight back against the stigma and prejudice. Because at the end of the day, the issue isn't that Rohingya families don't care about education. They value it immensely. The problem is a system that's built in a way that consistently puts that right just beyond their reach. And all this information we're talking about, it comes directly from vital, on-the-ground research done by students at Al-Bukhari International University. Their work is what gives these families a voice and provides the hard data needed to actually push for change. So we'll end with this question. The challenges are systemic, they're huge, but the solutions, the hope we're seeing, it's all rooted in community, in empathy, in grassroots action. And it kind of leaves you wondering, when the official systems fail the most vulnerable people, where does the responsibility to actually do something begin?